Today I'm going to make a Lord of the Rings dress to go see the Rings of Power on the big screen, which is something that I didn't even think we would be able to do. Hello friends, and welcome back to With Love Christina. It's Hobbit month! If you have been following my channel for any length of time, you know that last year I had an entire month of Hobbit videos because September 22nd is Frodo and Bilbo's birthday, and it is universally known as Hobbit Day. So being a big Lord of the Rings nerd, my husband and I have always celebrated Hobbit Day. I've always tried to make it like a fun day of feasting and doing hobbity things. This year, on Wednesday, 5 days from the day that I'm filming this, we are going to see the first 2 episodes of the Rings of Power on the big screen. Cinemark worked with Amazon Prime to do like a global screening, free tickets for fans, and I didn't think I was going to get a ticket because I didn't learn about it until an hour after they had already released the tickets, and when I went to check there was only 1 seat left. I didn't grab it in time, and so I sat there refreshing my page for 20 minutes, hoping somehow that some seats would pop up so my husband and I could go. Miraculously, they did. So we may have grabbed the last 2 tickets that were next to each other to go see the Rings of Power on Wednesday on the big screen, and I'm really excited. But being me, I need a themed dress. And yes, I do have a Hobbit-y dress, but I wanted a dress that was actually made out of Lord of the Rings fabric. So as soon as I got the tickets, I started searching online for fabric that I could make a dress out of. Originally, I was going to go with something like this because it's very elvish, and the Rings of Power isn't as much about the hobbits as it is about, you know, the elves and the wars. So like, I wanted something a little bit more elvish. But that fabric does not ship for 10 to 12 days after you purchase it, so it would not have gotten here in time. So I panicked, I looked all over the internet, and I stumbled across this fabric from a Etsy shop that I will link down below. And I know it's not elvish, but it is the 4 hobbits of the Fellowship raiding a farmer maggot's garden, which somehow seems a lot more me than elves, because we all know that I'm just a hobbit at heart. So today we're gonna make a hobbit dress to go see the Rings of Power on the big screen. I will be vlogging that experience and adding that into the end of this video. So if you wanna see how that goes, if you wanna hear a little bit about my opinion on the Rings of Power, you can watch to the end. But let's get started. Okay, so for this dress, I have a 1950s sundress pattern, which I think should work really well. My one conundrum is that I only have 2 yards of this fabric, and this pattern calls for 2.5 yards. However, it's a 60-inch wide fabric, and this is a 56-inch wide fabric. So if I don't have enough fabric for the pattern pieces, I have this brown fabric that I thrifted forever ago. I have tons of it. And after watching Rachel Maxey's video on repainting a corset that she owned, I thought, why not take this brown fabric, and instead of using the same Hobbit fabric for the pocket in this skirt, paint a Hobbit door on my brown fabric and have a Hobbit door pocket. The first thing that I need to do is to go to Michael's, get a fabric medium, and make sure I have all of the colors that I need to paint a Hobbit door onto the pocket. So that's where we're going right now. Let's go. Okay, I got what I needed, I got everything I wanted. plus 3 candles. I almost bought some Halloween cats, but we're gonna wait until they're on sale. So now it's time to go paint. Okay, so originally I had a plan to use this pattern, but then I realized I have just bought this pattern, which I think I'm going to use instead. For 1, there are fewer pieces. For 2, I don't have to do interfacing. And for 3, less buttonholes. So we're gonna see if these pattern pieces all fit on my fabric. So the first thing I actually did was iron out the fabric and refold it because it was folded a little crookedly, and I knew that I was going to have to use up as much as I could, which meant that I wanted to put my pattern pieces as close to the selvage as possible, if not on the selvage. And then I spent a lot of time trying to fit the pattern pieces onto the fabric. I know that it was not the 2.5 yards that the pattern called for, but I was hoping that because I had an extra 4 inches on the sides, on the width of the fabric, that I would still be able to figure it out somehow. But the pattern pieces were all just too long, and especially because I needed all of the print to face the same way, I just ran into problem after problem trying to rearrange them all. So I have run into the problem that I figured I would, in that both of the side panel skirt pieces do not fit on the fabric. However, because pockets go on the front side panel, I think we'll test this theory. I'm going to cut the back skirt panel out, and then I'm going to piece together the fabric that I have left, and I think I might have enough to piece together a front side panel and then cover those seams with pockets. Once I had realized I was going to piece together the fabric, I tried to place the skirt panel in a place where I would have a decent amount of larger pieces to piece together, and I also wanted to use as little fabric between pieces as I could, but because I had to have the front on a fold, I still wasn't able to preserve everything I wanted to. But then I spent quite a lot of time trying to decide whether I wanted to print match where the skirt would be pieced together. In the end, I kind of gave up trying to print match because if I folded it where I wanted to print match, then the pieces weren't long enough, but it all worked out in the end. This is how close we're cutting it. This actually is a little bit funky right there because there's a little cut here, but we're just gonna do it anyway. Then it was time to cut out the pocket and also some interfacing that I didn't end up using because I forgot about it, and that is okay. And then I also marked all of my little markings on the pattern. If you're ever worried about marking your patterns but you don't have a pattern, like a fabric marker, it's really okay. I just use a lead pencil and I mark the inside of my fabric and it works perfectly. And then I decided to put this red seam binding or edge binding onto the pocket, and it was a pain in the butt because it was a little bit too thin and I had to resew it a couple of times, and in the end I don't know why I chose to do this. I should have just gone with a wider seam tape, but we will talk about that in a minute. And that was the end of my first day. Good morning. So, yesterday I finished sewing the front of the dress together and I realized three very important things. The first being that I really do not like the little red binding on the pockets. It's just not my favorite. I don't like the way that it looks with the color scheme of the rest of the dress because there's mostly orange. I don't actually think there's any red in this print, and so I don't like the red. So I want to take that off. Two, you can probably tell the pockets are crooked. I'm going to take that apart and redo it. The third important thing is it's not going to fit my hips. I measured the front panel against myself and the top is fine, it fits great, but as I kind of expected, the hip area is not big enough. This happens a lot with vintage patterns. They make them, it's a 45 bust and a 47 hip, and I'm a 45 bust and a 52 hip. So it happens a lot. I'm used to it. Also, I have re-sewn this twice and it will not stay. It's too thin of a binding. So I'm going to take this apart. I'm going to take off the red binding. I'm going to fold those under, and then I'm going to re-sew them together. And then what I'm going to do is cut a side panel. I think I will probably only have to start at the waist and just add an extra little side panel in brown so that the skirt can be a little fuller and that it will actually fit my hips. So, a lot of work to do today. You live and you learn, which happens every time I sew. But let's get going. So, I keep thinking about the seam binding and I don't really like the way that the pocket looks folded over. So, what I'm going to do is make my own seam binding out of the same brown that I'm going to make the panel from, so it'll tie it all in together, and then I will do seam binding around the neck as well. Making seam binding is very, very easy. All you really have to do is cut a strip that when you fold over the two edges, like you basically fold it in like in half, but not in half. You fold each edge in so that they touch in the middle, right? And then that width, you're gonna fold in half again over the edge of your seam tape. So you want that, you wanna figure out how wide you want your seam binding to be. Triple it, no, quadruple it, whatever. I want my seam binding to be around a ½ an inch, I think. So I'm going to have to cut fabric that is a ½ an inch, 2 inches, so that I can fold it over again, iron it, fold it over again, and then put it around the edges. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna make some seam binding.
So I'm really glad that I took off the red seam binding and made the brown stuff. It's so easy to do. And I did, I misspoke and I miscalculated. I actually made it 1 inch wide and not ½ an inch wide. So I cut out pieces of fabric that were 4 inches wide and folded them down. I really liked this thickness. I thought it worked out really well. And then I did all of the work of taking apart the front, re-sewing it back together, and then I got to putting together the back of the dress. Even though I knew that the dress is not going to fit me in the hips, I still wanted to kind of put the front and back together so that I could see how large of a panel I needed to put in. So I am sewing back the back together so that I can kind of see how much I need to add.
Okay, so as you can see, it actually looks pretty cute and the top fits, but we just need this little section covered. So I'm gonna cut out just a little triangle of brown fabric to match the binding and insert it there as like a little, I know there's an official name for that, but I don't know. I do really like it. I think it's very cute. So yeah, that should be pretty easy to do. And then I will attach everything and we'll be pretty much done.
And then came the process of putting it all together. Here you can see that I'm just using one of these skirt panels to cut out a bonus panel to make the hips wider. I didn't know exactly how narrow it needed to get at the top, so I figured I would just sew it onto one side and then kind of just fudge around with it until it worked. Here you can see me pinning it to the piece, and I sewed down that edge and then I kind of pinned it in place on the other side and trimmed away the excess so that it came to a point like it should. This is probably not the best way to do it, but it's the way I did it and it worked out really well. So I am overall just fine with it. And then I made more seam binding because the edges of the top of the garment are all finished with seam binding. And I just did the same process of cutting out a 4 inch wide piece, folding it in half to find the middle, folding over both sides to make it to meet in the middle, ironing it. There's so much ironing in this process. And then I put all the pins in. This was such a long process. I got so tired of pinning seam binding onto my dress, and I had to have a little cookie break because it was just exhausting to do. There's so many pins, so many curves. It was not my favorite process, but it did work out pretty well in the end. I put on the zipper before I sewed on the seam binding so that I could hide the ends of the zipper underneath the seam binding. And then it took me forever to sew all this up because I had to make sure all the fabric was caught in there. And after some aesthetic ironing, that was the end of day 2.
Hi, hello. Okay, so change of plans. I am not going to paint Hobbit doors on the pockets because I feel like there's enough going on with the dress. Instead, I'm going to make a Hobbit door purse. I don't actually know if this is going to work, but my plan is to use paper plates to stiffen the front and the back, the sides of some cardboard boxes to stiffen around. I've got a zipper, if I decide to zipper it at all, and then I'm just gonna paint a Hobbit door on it. That's what we're gonna do today. We have 2 days until the movie, and this seems like an appropriate project to take on.
So most of this paper plate planning was pretty much useless, but I will explain what my thought process was here. I cut the paper plates down so that they were mainly flat, and I planned to use them to stiffen the front and back. This is not a purse that I think I will ever have to wash, so I didn't really anticipate like it getting wet or, you know, the paper plates disintegrating, but I sewed around each plate to keep them in place, and then my plan was to make a side panel. Here you can see me making the strap, but I was also going to make a side panel to go all the way around the purse, and then I was going to insert a zipper, and my thought was that it would be a nice stiff like little round box purse. But then I realized that I don't know how to turn that inside out after I've done the side seams, and also it just was useless. So I took out the paper plates. I thought for a minute. I decided to just keep one paper plate in there for the front of it, and I sewed across the top because I decided I did not want it to do a zipper. So I made it a little flat opening, turned everything back right side out. I added the strap where I wanted it to be, and as you can see, I'm turning inside out the flap, the strap, and then I pinned everything together and sewed around the edges so that I could then flip it inside out and have just a little, very simple circular purse. It is not fancy. It's not at all what I originally planned. And I know I could have looked up a tutorial and printed out some pattern pieces and learned how to make a proper little purse, but you know, I just didn't have the energy on this day, so it is what it is. Maybe someday I will make a nicer purse. I did manage to have a paper plate in there and still turn it inside out. It was a little bit of work, but it all worked out in the end. And then began painting. For this, I just added 1 part fabric medium to 2 parts paint, and I decided to copy Bilbo's the bag end door with the colors. This was really just looking at the picture and pretty much freehanding it. I followed the basic setup of Bilbo's door and the windows and everything else, and then once I was done with the basic setup, I started adding all of the little details, the little bricks. I added in whatever plants I kind of felt like. I did follow the picture a little bit, but I didn't have a ton of colors. I thought I had more colors of paint at home, and I ended up not having as much as I wanted. So I just did what I could. I used several different colors of green for the grass and the bushes and the leaves and everything, and I added vines. I tried to make some trailing up. And yeah, I just had a lot of fun with this. I really like painting, and I had forgotten how much I loved it. And so I really want to get back into painting, maybe paint some little canvases. We shall see. But this was absolutely my favorite part of the whole project. And with that, we are done, and it's time to go to the reveal.
Good.
So good.
We missed the very beginning, but it was still so good. Wait,
So good. I'm so excited to watch the rest of it.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm looking at the camera, not the screen.
Can't tell with me because I have glasses on.
Let me button this. Oh, you're filming.
Yes, I am.
Make sure it look good.
I was just thinking my hand is possibly shaky.
It's pretty much everything. It was amazing. I did not realize we were going to see it on such a big screen.
Neither did I.
Like, it. Yeah, I was like, oh, that's like the IMAX screen. Like, I was like, oh no, wait, it's playing in there, and I can hear it.
Right.
So yes, but it
so
was
good.
amazing. It was well cast. Well, besides casting, it was well paced, even with with everything that was going on.
It was really good. It didn't feel too rushed.
No,
because there was a lot happening.
But I have so many questions now, and all the characters that I was like, ooh, are those going to be good characters or not?
They were so good.
Amazing.
I really liked Durin's wife.
Yes.
I thought she was great.
Yes, I was concerned about dwarf women.
I just wanted her to have a beard. But I think they did a really good job casting everyone, and I like the Harfoots. I wasn't sure if I would.
Oh yeah,
but I like them. I like Nori a lot.
So far, it's a fascinating story.
I really like Poppy.
I feel like where that story. Well, we could get into all this. More just, you have to see it on the big screen, and
we did.
Unfortunately, no, yeah, we did.
I'm so glad you're married to me.
And we got to chat with interesting fans afterwards.
And I met Vicky, who I've known for 8 years and never met in real life. That was great. That was really fun. And then talking to the lady who actually has been to Hobbiton.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I like the casting a lot. I think they cast well. I think Galadriel and Elrond. I was obviously always a little unsure because it's characters you've known forever as only a certain actor. So I wasn't 100% sure about whether I would like them, but I really liked the casting. Anyway, yeah, it was good. I can't wait to watch it again because we missed the beginning, and I missed some because I had to go to the bathroom and get snacks. You didn't miss much, though. Well, you kind of missed the...
You missed the opening title. I mean...
yeah.
We obviously missed the credits. Yeah, because we saw the credits when the second episode started.
And I missed whatever Galadriel does in the beginning, so we'll watch it again tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah,
I love it. I loved it.
It was
every
great.
minute. I was so sad that it was over so quick.
And... Yes, all the things.
Keep going.
The just the glimpse of Ents and...
That made me so happy.
Okay.
I think that's all we have to say.
Yeah.
It was really good.
Rewatch it all.
Rewatch it all tomorrow.
Yes. That's about it.
That's it. Bye.
I did it. We are done. So, to wrap up, you all saw our reaction to The Rings of Power. It was amazing. I wish that I could go watch every single episode on the big screen. I highly recommend watching the show. And if you want to listen to my husband and I podcast about it, we have a podcast. You can go check out his channel, which is called Suko Films. I will link him down below. And you can either watch us talk about the show, or you can listen on all the places where you find podcasts. It is called Concerning Middle-earth, I believe. And we are gonna break down each episode as they air. And we have an old podcast where we went through all the Lord of the Rings books, so we might go through the appendices. I don't know. We haven't figured that part out yet. But, yeah, that is it. It was so much fun to go. When we were there, we met a bunch of people who were, of course, everybody was a Lord of the Rings fan. And so we were able to just talk to people about how much we all loved it. There was not one negative person in that theater. So far as making the dress, I was very, very happy with it, except I don't like the brown side panels. However, the creator of that fabric is going to restock in September. So when she does, I am going to repurchase some of the fabric to make matching panels for the sides of the dress. Otherwise, I am pretty happy with it. I know that the binding doesn't lay quite flat and I didn't use brown thread. I don't really care. I can't tell you anything that I don't like about that pattern. I actually think it's a really cute dress. I might make more out of it. And as far as the purse, I have not washed it and I have forgotten to set the paint. It hasn't flaked or anything. My kids have been playing with it and I'm going to keep it as like a little keepsake. But obviously I don't know how to make purses. I just did I just did whatever I wanted to do. I know there are round purse tutorials online. I just didn't want to deal with it. So I think if I were to make the purse again, I wouldn't put a paper plate in there, but it did kind of help with the stiffness. It kept the front flat. So you win some, you lose some. Overall, I'm really, really happy with the dress. I was really, really happy with the purse. The Rings of Power was incredible. I am so sad that it's over. So that was it. I hope you enjoyed this little video watching me sew. I know I'm not a very good sewing teacher, that's why I've never done any sewing tutorials, but hopefully you enjoyed watching the process and knowing that you don't have to be perfect in order to sew. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you want to see more Hobbit content from me, please subscribe. I will be doing another Hobbit month, or actually in this case it's going to be kind of a Lord of the Rings month. This next video that I'm going to be putting up is going to be cooking Middle-earth meals for a week. I just got back from shopping for that, so I will be cooking, well, 5 days of Middle-earth meals. And then after that, I will be dressing like Lord of the Rings characters for a week. Last year I only did Hobbit stuff, and this year I want to expand and just do more Middle-earth content. And then on September 22nd, of course, I'm gonna post a Hobbit Day video. If you would like to support my channel in more ways than just liking and subscribing and commenting, all of which are very valid and very appreciated ways to support me, you can go down and tip me through Ko-Fi if you would like to. It's basically just like buying me a coffee, or you can subscribe to my Patreon. I am posting a lot of scans that are related to my videos on Patreon. Every once in a while I might post little video extras if I have extra footage that I don't know what to do with, but for the most part it is just magazine scans, vintage scans, vintage clothing, housewife routines, recipes, things like that. For next week's video, I will be posting all of the recipes that I use for my Middle-earth recipes, so if you want that, you can go subscribe to Patreon. It's only $5 a month. That is all it's ever going to be, and I will never raise that price. So it's just a fun little way to connect to the videos, get some extra content, see the scans up close, see the recipes for yourself, things like that. So I hope that wherever you are feeling safe and loved, and until I see you again, have a beautiful day, and thank you for watching. Bye! And I stumbled across this Etsy shop. So my general plan is to use this. Hello. Kitty! Does somebody need him?
We're fighting over the cat.
Meow, 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 meow. I hope that... Irene, be quiet! That's not being quiet.